Global challenges include a lot, but energy crisis for me seems quite an important one because, as we all know, energy is quite essential in our life. We need energy for everything. So, hence my topic, energy crisis. But what caused the energy crisis? Energy crisis has been present for quite some time. And what caused them is, the main cause is simply the depletion of natural resources. We get energy from natural resources, and when that sources are run out, we will not have energy anymore. So why and how does the natural energy sources deplete? It's because of overpopulation, as you can see there. Because overpopulation, there are a lot of people, but we need to supply enough energy to supply them all. And do you know that US, for example, it has 5% of the world's population, but it consumes 20% of the world's total energy. So when US itself consumes 20%, we got less energy for the other parts of the world. The next reason would be overconsumption and wastage of energy. And sometimes they are unavoidable. And for example, the major accidents and natural calamities, the earthquakes, all the natural disasters, they cannot be avoided. So these are natural calamities and the sources get destroyed, and also some of the power plants which interrupts the energy supply. This, as you can see, is the world's current energy usage as per 2015, the latest data I could get on. And as you can see, the most energy sources we use are natural gas, coal, and also oil, all of which are non-renewable. And since we are facing this energy crisis, we have to move towards renewable energy sources such as solar, wind, geothermal, and much more. This is the broken down part. Brunei is specifically in Asia Pacific, where we consume a lot of coal, and again, it is non-renewable. But since we have a lot of energy sources, wind, solar, all of those, why haven't we countered this crisis? The reason is because for sustainable energy source, it must be environmentally sustainable. We can't have an energy source that releases carbon dioxide a lot, that instead of solving the energy crisis, it creates a global problem, that is the global warming. And also, it must be because of the energy security. We need to manage energy. We must not run out of it in a short amount of time. We need to make sure that it is present for the future, such as the oil and gas itself. According to theory, we might run out of oil and gas in the next 50 years, but if we have the energy security for it, we might not have faced that problem. And also because of energy equality. As I've mentioned before, the distribution of energy is quite important. And as long as energy equality, energy security, and all these are present, that is what makes an energy source sustainable. And these are the simple current solutions to the energy crisis. Adopting a common stand on global warming, using energy efficient products, and also moving towards renewable energy. As you can see there, adopting a common stand on climate change. You might ask, what does climate change have to do with energy crisis? But again, as I've mentioned before, what a sustainable energy source must have, that is environmental sustainability. A source must not emit too much carbon dioxide. So when we adopt a common stand, we will limit the amount of CO2 released, the amount of greenhouse gas emitted. So by that, we will somehow control the source of our energy source. And as you can see, again, it promises environmental sustainability. Also, energy efficiency. And it is one of the ways in which we can solve the energy crisis. Not exactly solve, we can reduce it actually. For the energy efficiency, what it means is simply you do the same thing, but with less required energy. So it's like, as you can see in the examples, the light bulbs, the compact fluorescent light bulbs can consume only 2/3 of the energy, and it can last for a longer time. So simply we are conserving the energy in a different manner. Instead of tapping into the source, we are tapping into the type of appliance that we use. And also, it can lead to a country's national security benefit. It's because when a country, it requires a lot of energy, it needs to import the fossil fuels from other countries. So when this is present in a country, the import rates will decrease and a country will be nationally stable. The economy of the country will not be much affected by the energy problem. The other types of energy, this is the most supporting part of the solution, more reliable one. There are a lot of energies actually, but for me these seems quite common. Firstly, bioenergy. It comes from biomass. All the woods, sugar cans, they contain energy because they photosynthesize when they grow, and when they're burned, that energy is released as chemical energy. And also it releases smaller net amount of carbon dioxide. Also, I'd like to make a statement that although the carbon dioxide amount is small, it does form other harmful gases such as methane, that in 2014, 4.7 million children in the world died because of toxic gases, and its source is the biomass. Secondly, is the hydroelectric energy. Its source is basically moving water. When water moves, it has kinetic energy, and we can tap into that kinetic energy to run over a turbine which runs a generator, and it generates the electricity. And as you can see, there are three types. First is a dam. We build a dam and we store the energy. So the stored energy of the water will increase, and when we release it, all the stored energy will be converted to kinetic energy, and a lot of the energy will be used to turn the turbine. It will be more efficient. And the second type would be run of the river. We don't control anything. We simply use the natural flow of the river, and it turns a turbine. However, it's not quite reliable because we can't control anything. And thirdly, pumped storage. It's simply an artificial way of creating kinetic energy to the water. We build two reservoirs, higher and lower, and water from the lower reservoir is pumped to the higher reservoir, and the water from the higher reservoir is let to flow. It's not quite reliable either because you need electricity in order to do that. Nuclear energy is quite an interesting part. By nuclear fission, uranium-62, it's the most commonly used element for nuclear fission. It's something to do with the neutrons. Neutrons from other elements will be used to crack open the nucleus of the uranium ion, and the neutrons are released. And that neutrons will carry on the reaction. It's sort of a chain reaction. They keep on continuing. And it is stopped by removing some of the neutrons. And the energy is processed in a reactor where the water is used, but the water will not be let to boil. It's simply a hot water, but it will not be let into vapor. Next will be the geothermal energy. This is using the natural heat from the earth. As you know, our earth is warm because below the crust is the mantle, which is like hot lava. And that heat comes from the decay of radioactive materials. This heat, they lead to geysers and all these tourist distractions, as they might say. And these geysers, they're steam. And that steam, we can take advantage of it to run the turbine of a generator. Also, we can also take advantage of the hot water instead of the steam to depressurize them again to turn the turbine. All of these lead to the production of electricity. And the next one will be wind energy. For me, I'll say it's clean and sustainable as no greenhouse gases are produced. It simply takes advantage of the wind. It is fully dependent on wind condition. If wind speed is double, then the power generated will be increased by 8 times. And as you can see, there are 3 parts of the tower. There will be the tower, the blade, and the generator. However, it has environmental issues. In order to build a turbine, you need to have a big space because turbines are naturally big. The bigger the rotors, the more energy will be created, hence more space required. Solar energy, also it's reliably clean, and the photovoltaic panels capture sunlight and converts it to electricity. Like our previous speaker has mentioned, it has a semiconductor of silicon which absorbs the photon from the light and it releases the electrons. The moving of electrons creates a current. And also there's another type that is concentrated solar power. It uses the sun's heat, it vaporizes a liquid in which the liquid turns to steam, and the steam runs a turbine which generates electricity. And this will be the final slide. This is the average amount of carbon dioxide emitted for every source of energy. As you can see, coal emits the most of carbon dioxide, 1072. So I bet that will be the end of my presentation, and I'll say energy is quite important and we need to find different ways in which we can synthesize energy. And thank you.
Thank you, Maimunah, for the very informative talk. We now invite our educators to comment and ask a few questions.
Okay, thank you very much. It was a very nice talk. It was a nice overview of all the different types of renewable energy at the end there. There's one particular point that I had a bit of a problem with. Maybe it's my fault I didn't understand it.
Yes.
So you were talking about this pump storage where you got two reservoirs,
yes,
one on the bottom of the hill and one on the top, and you pump it up there using electricity. So my question is, how can that actually help? Because you're going to have...
And when we didn't just release it straight away, we stored it at the higher reservoir first to build up the potential energy. So when it moves down, the kinetic energy will be converted to electricity. Also, the pump storage we usually carry it out when the electricity price is conveniently low. It's not commonly used.
Okay, so you haven't made a perpetual motion machine then. You're really taking advantage of the cheap electricity and storing it. Okay, so it's kind of like a battery or storing energy. I suppose also you can have an open reservoir and catch rainwater, which is going to put up there using the energy from the sun ultimately. Okay, so that, I think that answers my question on that one. I had one more, which was, have you got any idea of the capacity for power generation from all these different kinds of technology you have there? So the wind versus solar versus hydro versus geothermal.
Well, as I've searched, the one that generates the most electricity would be nuclear. It's 100 plus terawatts, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know the exact figures, but there's certainly a lot. I'm talking more about the renewables, actually, the wind, solar, geothermal, hydro.
We can't say for sure because they're all dependent on the situation. If wind, for example, at certain places the energy generated will be a lot because of the wind, the amount of wind there, and same goes for solar. So we can't say the exact figure, but if I were to guess, I'll say solar will have more power generated because electricity, the sunlight is usually more available than the wind.
I agree with you, so that's a good answer, a good guess. Okay. Thanks.
Okay, so I'd like to ask another general question, just to see what sort of background reading you picked up on this. So you do go through global use of energy, showing a proportional use of different kinds of energy by different global regions. So that was all given on a relative basis. So my question is really carbon trading. Can you elaborate a little bit on carbon trading? But do you think this is a good or a bad idea? And can you explain the proportions, just a quick overview of the proportions of different quantities of energy that are being used in different parts of the globe, and how important is this in terms of carbon, in terms of an idea of introducing carbon trading? I think it's been introduced already.
So basically the question is about carbon trading, is it?
The question, yeah, can you tell me what is meant by carbon trading? And can you then, this is a background question, if you, on whom that you might have come across this, and how do you feel, and how, can you tell me how, what different regions, global regions, are using most of the energy from the power?
Well, I'm not sure about carbon trading, but as far as I've done my research, the state which uses the most electricity, the most energy is probably the US, because they launch a lot of the missiles and the NASA and all that. They do require a lot of energy. But as you can see on the first slide, I've mentioned about the energy distribution for different states. It all depends on what they need it for. I'm sorry. There. And as you can see, the overall energy is kind of the equal, but the type of energy is what that differs. So I'm not quite sure about the carbon trading though.
Okay. So one thing to just keep in mind is that there's a very small part of the surface, the countries, or a very small part of the surface of the planet are actually using most of the renewable resources.
Yes.
And that is leading to a lot of carbon dioxide emissions in the atmosphere, and that's having devastating effects on the environment. And so there is an introduction of carbon trading for those countries that are using most of these renewable resources, these fossil fuels, let's say, non-renewable resources, for those that are using the fossil fuels actually are now obliged to contribute financially to the countries that are using them to a lesser degree carbon trading.
Okay.
Thank you, Maimunah. My question is, you showed this diagram here, and it's the previous slide.
Is it this?
Yeah. You put an Asia Pacific region. Coal is the majority used. Why do you think that is?
It's probably because a lot of the coal sources are located in Asia Pacific. Like for example,